Florence was a Wakefield-born woman who lived here on Bond Street, where her blue plaque is now cited to honour the incredible work she did across the country and in the League of Nations that enabled all women to get the vote in 1928. It seems incredible, doesn't it, that less than 100 years ago, half the population were not represented in Parliament. Right now, only 34% of MPs are women. Parliament has a long way to go. Florence's sheer force of will was apparent from a very early age. Asked at age 14 what she thought was needed the most reform, she replied that women should vote. Her belief in equal suffrage meant that Wakefield became a centre for leaders of women's rights. Dame Millicent Fawcett was a frequent visitor to support the Wakefield branch of the National Union of Women's Suffrage, set up in 1910, and when the time came, on July the 2nd in 1913, Florence led 10,000 people through here from Outwood to the Bullring to hear the many and varied arguments for equal franchise. If you listen really carefully, you can still hear the footsteps of all the women, led by Florence, marching past. Intelligent and quick-witted, Florence used the power of her pen and the press to gain support and expose the ridiculousness of arguments used by some against women getting the vote. This letter to the editor of the Yorkshire Post in reply to Miss Milner's opinion on the matter. As to her question, what of the millions of women who do not want a vote? And one is tempted to wonder where they are. I am sure it will be a great consolation to her and to them to remember one little fact which seems to have escaped their notice, namely that no power on earth can make them vote if they do not wish to do so. So, when the franchise is given to women, they will not be one penny the worse. They can still show that they do not want to vote by refraining from visiting the polling booth. Could anything be simpler? Yours, etc., Florence Beaumont. Florence could see straight through stupidity and was not afraid to call it out. She also believed strongly in the power of kindness and refused to adhere to convention if it meant being unkind. I will not, she said, bow to convention if that convention is based on unkindness or stupidity. During the war, Florence was superintendent of Queen Mary's Auxiliary Corps of Nurses based in Harrogate, where she risked her reputation in order to be kind. Taken from family memoirs, we learn about a time when, on a dark and snowy night, Aunt Flo, as her nephews called her, in response to loud knocking, opened the door of her hut, and a Captain Jones, highly intoxicated, fell into the room, uttering, "Miss Beaumont, Miss Beaumont, I love you so much, Miss Beaumont." This was, of course, embarrassing. Jones could barely stand and would probably collapse before he got back to his billet and die of hypothermia. Besides, he had had a rough and dangerous time in the trenches in France and was lucky to be alive and was likely to go back soon to that slaughtering ground. Florence did not send for the military police, as that would involve a court-martial. So, with her junior's help, she bedded him down on the sofa in her sitting room, still muttering, "Miss Beaumont, I love you." The next day, she gave him a good dressing down and sent him on his way. She did not report the incident. Florence constantly pushed back on convention and was a great fan of bicycling and the wearing of bloomers. Once, when cycling into town from Hatfield Hall to attend a meeting at our Mechanics Institute, a local man called after her that she was no lady. This, of course, is a classic way men try to control women, but Florence saw through this and would not be controlled. In 1918, 30% of women got the vote, those over 30 and who owned property, along with all men over the age of 21. Furious with the situation, Florence moved to London to be closer to the suffragist headquarters and continued to campaign, delivering talks and galvanising people to action across the country and in Europe. It is important to remember that Florence was a suffragist, not a suffragette. Suffragists did not believe in violent action. Suffragists did. At the time, property had more rights in law than women, which is why incredible women like Sylvia Pankhurst targeted property. Florence, however, inspired action through non-violent deeds and words. Her persistence in raising awareness of the stark inequalities between the genders and her constant lobbying made a difference to the millions of women who had been denied the right to vote in 1918. Florence's rousing speech in 1922 at the National Union of Societies of Equal Citizenship laid out the inequalities women faced clearly. Are we content with half a loaf? Are we content to stay where we are? The answer of our National Union is emphatic. No. We still keep the question of all equal franchise in the front of our programme. When the government under Prime Minister Asquith offered to remove the existing inequalities between men and women, we thought this extraordinary and soon found that the government had no intention of doing anything of the kind. By 1928, Florence had been representing the cause as the Honourable Secretary of the Council for the Representation of Women at the League of Nations, which was the precursor to our United Nations for some time. Finally, all women over 21 were granted this basic right on July the 2nd, 1928, exactly 18 years to the day since she led that now famous march through Wakefield. Florence died in 1929, just 52 years old, of a heart attack whilst in Leeds visiting her family in Wakefield and receiving treatment for cancer. Florence leaves behind a legacy so profound and so deep-reaching, it's almost incomprehensible. Not only did she keep fighting for equal rights when others gave up, her kindness, sense of humour and vision continues to impact on our lives today. At the heart lies her motto, and this is one which I very much adhere to. I shall not bow to convention if that convention is based on unkindness or stupidity. Without Florence, the original seed of the idea of equal franchise would have remained in the dark, would have remained underground, unnurtured and not fed by that which is essential for things to grow. Florence inspired and led a generation of women and men in Wakefield, and without her there would not have been the growth of emancipation, of enlightenment and of change. So the natural movement that Florence inspired is very much like nature herself. Without Florence's influence, the bud, the seed, the idea would not have grown. Thank goodness for Florence. My name is Sarah Leah Cobham, and I want to thank you for joining me as we've learnt all about Florence Beaumont.